Second Zoom In on Conservation event. It's designed to provide a forum for increasing the effectiveness of district supervisors by introducing both new and old partners with their ideas to enhance sharing opportunities within our joint mission of conservation and spotlighting the efforts of one New Hampshire district each month. I think everyone here knows me, but I am Richard Meller, the current president of NHACD. And I'll take this opportunity before we get started to announce that if you haven't heard, this year's annual meeting will be held in some form of remote format similar to this. And while the details are yet to be finalized, one aspect for all supervisors to be considering is the nomination of NHACD officers. My term as president is subject to a 3-year term limit, which is up this fall. And this is a chance to guide our association to new heights and bring fresh ideas forward. Please be thinking about who can help with this. Maybe you. Dick Lutz, let's get started.
All right, I'm offering our news broadcast tonight. We've got some news from maybe 4 or 5 different people contributing to this. Let's catch people up on the NACD Executive Board has approved a special proclamation about the diversity, equity, and inclusivity that they are really hoping to promote and make sure people are aware of the aggressive steps they're taking to encourage greater diversity in the national board. And a task force is established to examine the DEI effects and what we can all do to help. I think the closing paragraph of their proclamation really sums it up. At our core, we're a grassroots organization representing every community in the United States, and we understand that expanding our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusivity takes a big commitment. At this time, there's a fundamental approach. Our voice starts with thousands of local communities. That's their first piece of news. Their second is that they are very happy to announce the 2021 Stewardship Week theme will be Healthy Forests, Healthy Communities. Recognizing trees and forests are critical to providing clean air and water, healthy soils, abundant wildlife habitat, and valuable products that we consume every day. They're happy that they have materials available for free download for educators to use to promote this stewardship in classrooms. And they really want people to use these print-on-demand materials, especially now with so much focus from every direction, and maybe not so much that's vetted about pollinators and the importance of trees. So we look forward to their school materials. State Conservation Committee is reporting that the Conservation Moose Plate Grant for 2021 has been launched. And of particular interest in this is again through an educational component. Eligible applicants include municipalities, county conservation districts, qualified nonprofit organizations engaged in conservation programs, public and private schools, that's kindergarten through grade 12, county cooperative extension, natural resource programs, and scout groups. Grant applications are due September 10th, 2020, with awards being announced in December 2020, and funding will be distributed in May 2021. NHACD demonstration grants will continue for 2 more years. Currently, there's close to $20,000 in the grant, with the remaining money being used to cover cost overruns on existing grants. There's an engineering agreement in the works with NRCS. District supervisors should be prepared to submit a proposal for conservation engineering work. NHACD President Richard Meller reports that his hand is out to accept the grant, and the grant is in the pipeline. Rockingham County Conservation District got its budget approved by the county delegation 2 weeks ago. The $90,000 brings the county contribution up to the level of funding that was equal to the amount prior to the 2011 budget cuts. The SCC is working on their new strategic plan. They met earlier today, it turns out, to begin the process of writing it. Please contact your SCC representative to give input on that proposed document. And our final news information tonight that I have to report is from Dr. Nathaniel Green. He wants us to know that the Envirothon National Committee has decided to keep the same theme for next year's Envirothon competition, since this year's was canceled. The theme for 2021 will remain water resources management, local control, and local solutions. The national competition will be held in Lincoln, Nebraska, since they were unable to host the national competition this year. So we're happy to hear that Dr. Green can report this, and we're looking forward to working with Envirothon teams. That's it for what I have news to report at this time. And I'm thrilled to roll into the spotlight on Cheshire County. Cheshire County's information is being shared with us tonight by Amanda Littleton. Amanda Littleton's their district manager and is a graduate of Antioch University in the Environmental Studies program with an MS in Environmental Education, and she's completed a BA in Anthropology and Psychology at the University of Rhode Island. Before coming to the Cheshire County Conservation District in 2007, she's held positions in various public and education outreach roles, promoting agriculture and the study of conservation of the natural environment. Amanda's a board member of the Monadnock Economic Development Corporation, Monadnock Farm and Community Coalition, as well as the Conservation District Employees Association of New Hampshire. Amanda's great interest in supporting the region's working landscape for its value that it contributes to the local economy, the good stewardship it provides for our local environment, and the benefits it brings to our rural communities. Amanda lives in Chesterfield with her family. When she's not working, she can be found fixing up their old home, hiking, or maybe best of all this summer, and we hope you enjoy it happily and safely, playing in the waters of the Monadnock region. Thanks so much, Amanda, for being our Cheshire County Spotlight tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the invitation to be here with all of you. So I was just asked for about 5 minutes to share a little bit of the work that we do in Cheshire County. And so as Chris mentioned, I've been there since 2007, and we have a great team down in Cheshire County. We have one other employee. She works part-time, about half-time with us. She's our outreach coordinator, Lola Bobrowski. And we have a wonderful board of supervisors that are really committed to seeing the organization be successful. And so what we focus on really is 4 areas: soil health, water quality, wildlife habitat, and farm and forest business viability. And I'll just give you a little quick highlight of maybe one program in each of those focus areas to give you a taste of the type of work we do. So I'll start with soil health. Back in 2012, we kicked off an equipment rental program. And that started with a 7-foot no-till seed drill that a farmer in the region was asking the Conservation District to sort of look into acquiring. And we were excited about that because at the time, there weren't any conservation districts doing equipment rentals in New Hampshire. So it's something that's really taken off since 2012. Most of the districts in New Hampshire now do equipment rentals for soil health. And we've grown our program to have about $150,000, a little over $150,000 of value of equipment that we rent out to farmers. And we work with all different types of farmers: dairy farmers, vegetable farmers, and they range a great bit in size from small homestead under 2 acres, where we have a BCS 2-wheel tractor and multiple implements, and all the way up through to now we have a 12-foot Esch no-till drill. So we really are trying to meet the needs of land users of all different sizes, different scales of agriculture. And we're always looking to expand and improve that type of programming. And this year, our board voted to make all of our equipment free for dairy farms because of the challenges with COVID-19, what it's posed for the dairy economy. And so that's been a great experience to be able to make that possible. And we look to try to continue to do things like that to make the equipment affordable and accessible to all the farms in the region. Let's see, for wildlife habitat improvement, a program I'd love to highlight is a new one we started this year called the Conservation Opportunity Fund. So we have a generous donor who helped us start a small endowment, really, like an agency fund at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, where we have about $70,000 in there. And what we're doing is not using those dollars for the program, but we're taking the interest earned from that money, and each year we're going to be giving out grants to landowners of small tracts of land to improve wildlife habitat on their properties. And so we really felt like there was a gap. There's wonderful programming through USDA NRCS for stewardship, as well as through our state fish and game department, but most of those are targeting folks over 20 acres. There are exceptions to that, but certainly most of the programs that rank and get funded are larger landowners. And so we thought this could be an opportunity to give grants of $1,500 to small landowners who want to do pollinator habitat, riparian buffers, as well as early successional work, or creating rain gardens on their property. So this year we were able to give out 4 awards. It's our first year doing it, and we gave out $5,500 for that. Most of them are focused on pollinator habitat. So we're really excited to see this program roll out and offer it each year. And I'll just mention that also our focus is for farm viability. We do a great deal of work trying to help grow markets for farmers. And so that takes a few different programs that we do to help grow markets. But one looks at it's called Granite State Market Match. And so anybody who has food stamps or SNAP benefits can now go to farmers markets around Cheshire County, as well as farm stands and CSAs, and they can basically get fruits and vegetables at 50% off. So they double their dollars for every dollar they spend with a local farmer. We've also started 3 years ago now a Veterans Appreciation Month to incentivize veterans. Anytime a veteran wants to go to the farmer's market in the month of September, we give them a $20 voucher as a thank you for their service to our country. And so we continue to grow that program. We now are working with 3 markets, and veterans can go to any of them any week and receive that voucher as a sort of a way for us to express our appreciation for what they do. But it's also great for the farms because it brings in new customers to these markets. Another component of our farm viability work is grants. We've partnered with our local food co-op for the past 4 years to give out grants for farmers to invest in on-farm infrastructure and equipment. And those grants can go up to $10,000. This past year in 2020, for this grant round, we were able to give out about $27,000 to 5 different farms. And so each year we try to grow that program, and we really appreciate the partnership with the food co-op as one of our funders, as well as you have our trust fund to do that. So that's just, I'm probably gone over my time. I'm sorry, I've already been rambling, so I'll stop there. But I just wanted to give you a little sample of the types of programs that we do for soil, water, wildlife, and farms.
An impressive overview. Thanks, Amanda. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box and we can get to them at the conclusion of this hour, or I can make sure that Amanda will see them as well and she can get back to you. I can say that I was impressed when I looked at your website in preparation for this evening. I really liked the section that had each month a different blog person contributing some information. So I was very impressed about that.
Yeah, most of our board members do those, and they're really interesting, a lot of variety of topics. The board's been such a great support and really engaged to make that possible.
Yeah, it comes off like that. I really enjoyed that part of well, I enjoyed your website, but that part was really, really zingy. Thank you. So the next part of our spotlight goes to Jeremy Fowler, Public Affairs Specialist for NRCS. Jeremy is the Public Affairs Specialist, and he started with the USDA in September as well. Jeremy's a graduate of the Defense Information School at Fort George C. Meade, Maryland, where he started his military career as a print journalist. photographer, and mass communications public affairs specialist in 2002. He remains in service with the U.S. Army Reserve and is the senior non-commissioned officer of a public affairs unit in Londonderry. Jeremy has attended advanced classes on strategic communications, digital media, and social media management at Denfos. Prior to his position with NRCS, Jeremy worked for the U.S. Department of State for 12 years in Consular Affairs, Passport Services Department. Jeremy grew up in his grandfather's retired Holstein farm in southern New Hampshire, where he spent his youth assisting the family in haying operations after the herd was sold off. He has a deep appreciation of the conservation efforts in this state, and as an Eagle Scout, he prefers to spend his time in the woods, camping, hiking, and taking the path less traveled or boating. He has recently moved back to the farm and is reestablishing his agricultural past. Thanks for being part of this meeting this evening, Jeremy. We'll be interested in hearing your program, which is about, just like it says, the communication efforts and how can we increase ours. Thanks for your expertise here tonight.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you for
Hang on 1 second, Jeremy. Is everybody else hearing him perfect or garbled? Perfect. Garbled?
Yeah, he's gobbled.
Jeremy, try again.
See if I can find another microphone.
How's that? Is that any better?
There you go. That's
All right.
it.
We did it. We landed on the moon, right?
You got it. Yeah. Back from the dark side. Thank you.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen here if it lets me. All right. Is everybody seeing my screen? Looks like everything's frozen. This is perfect. Oh. Let's see. Is this the right button? All right. I think you're seeing my screen.
We're good.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so good evening. Thank you for allowing me to join you folks, talk about staying connected to conservation. I realize everybody is at different levels, certainly when it comes to their use of these forms of media, but also with their understanding. So this will be somewhat of an overview. I've worked with the district managers quite a bit about kind of honing their social media skills. So I think that we're moving forward, but this is just kind of an overview for you leaders to sort of understand what kind of goes into a social media presence and what it really takes to do one successfully, what can be done, what benefits to conservation we can use through these platforms. Obviously, in days of late, we've all kind of had to migrate to a different form of interaction with each other than we certainly or mostly used to. And I think social media is only taking off more as a result. So we'll get into it right here. What is social media? Well, you know, it's websites and applications that have come around about in the last 20 years that sort of replace the coffee shop or the hardware store in the past. I remember as a young kid in Rochester, always going to the hardware store, and that's where my dad, you know, chit-chatted with people. You know, somebody's coming in off the farm trying to buy a part, or maybe it was a local tractor supply company, and that's where they had their conversations. Well, those days obviously have changed quite a bit. So a lot of people are migrating to social media, and it's actually been sort of great because a lot of folks, you know, somebody that went to 4-H with 30, 40 years ago lost touch with, you know, they're reconnecting with them now on these platforms. So there's a couple of the big players here: Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp. These are all considered social media platforms. Some of them are beneficial to the conservation effort. Some of them are great to leverage. Some of them are tricky, but they're all constantly evolving, and they're all coming and going as, you know, different people have different interests online. So a little difficult to stay on top of, but I think in the end, it's a great way to get your message out to your counties on what your efforts are, what's available to them, and what sort of support you guys can provide. As well as NRCS, we have a social media presence too, and we try and get our messages out there as well as email in the traditional formats. So it's something that, you know, I'm tasked with staying on top of, and it's one of the ways I'm doing that is by interacting more with your district managers and providing them some content for their platforms. So we'll move right along here. Why social media? Well, it's likely where your target audience is. I know, not everybody's a big fan of graphs, but the statistics sort of speak for themselves here. You can see that 72% of all U.S. adults have at least one social media site. So if you're looking to reach out to adults in your area, there's almost a 75% chance that they're on social media. So that's a great way to try and leverage that communication. Unfortunately, the paper industries and the circulars, they're not being read as much as they used to be. It's unfortunate for me. I started my career as a print journalist, so I've had to adapt. So I certainly understand making that change. But obviously that form of media is in a big decline. And you can see the graph on the lower right as well. In every age category, the trend is only continuing to be upward of how much social media people are on based on their age bracket. Not a single one of them is dipping. They're only increasing. Interesting statistic is the average individual spends 3 hours a day on social media. So that's 3 hours that they're no longer reading the newspaper or checking their emails and things like that. So I think we need to sort of maybe shift to, getting our messages out on social media. And that would be a fantastic opportunity for the conservation districts. And that's really what this is all about. So you're probably wondering, well, which platform? There's so many. What do I do? Where do I begin? Where do we focus our efforts? Where's the payoff? How do we do this efficiently and effectively so that our districts can maintain a positive contact with their potential clients or producers? Well, each platform is different, and each platform, has its own little sort of gimmick that makes it Twitter or makes it Facebook or makes it something else. So I've just thrown in some data here from Buffer and Hootsuite. They're two social media places that kind of track usage and everything else. You can see that down here, Facebook has 2,449 million users. That's approaching 2.5 billion out of a total Earth population of 8 billion. So, they're the big player right now, and they have been for a long time. You can see in the upper right that when businesses are polled, most of the businesses say they have Facebook or Twitter, and they use them regularly. So Twitter, if you look at the lower graph, is really sort of down 340 million users versus Facebook's 2.5 billion. And while that may seem like, well, why do we put our efforts there? It actually might be a platform that might get a little more mileage to you than Facebook. For reasons I'll get into here coming up. The bottom line is that you'll see these come and go. So if you were to start or really want to focus your efforts, I would focus your efforts on something that appears to be having some lasting value. And at this time, those platforms are probably Facebook and Twitter right now. So, and we'll talk about the differences between those two in the next slide here. So you have Twitter and you have Facebook. These are kind of, I think, probably your best options for social media in your districts. And they are different animals, really. They're both social media. They're both places people go. But the way they're set up is different in such a manner that one is more of a soapbox and one is more of your soap store, if you will. One of them is just kind of information coming at you, and you can choose to do with it what you will. And that would be Twitter, the soapbox, versus Facebook, which is more of your soap store. You want to talk about soaps. You want to, find out which one nourishes your skin a little more, say. You can have a community interaction there a little better than you can have on Twitter. So that having been said, there's not a ton of interaction on Twitter. You certainly post stuff and people can reply, but it is constrained by a character limit of 255 letters in your message. And I always thought that was a gimmick, but now that I've kind of done some research on it, I understand that it's actually very efficient. Because if any of you are on Facebook, you endlessly probably scroll through your feed looking for something that you actually want to see. Well, I'd rather do that in a series of 255 character posts than, some flashy pictures and text I got to read to really figure out what they're trying to communicate, right? So, also the smaller audience there is a bit of a benefit to you because of there is so much traffic on Facebook. It's like trying to be heard in a room of 2.5 billion people. I mean, it's probably more than than the audience we're trying to reach, obviously. So Twitter is more quick blips of information, so that people see single posts. This is nice because it attracts your audience faster. People are generally more likely to like your Twitter page than they are to follow your Facebook page. But the people that are following your Twitter accounts are generally less devoted to you in the long run, because they're not as passionate as followers. Whereas on Facebook, you kind of start a community thing where everybody's kind of chatting on the side about your posts and everything else. So they are definitely two certainly different things here. So it might be slow to attract an audience on Facebook, but at the same time, they're more passionate about what you're doing. So the bottom line here really is that businesses generally have both for a good reason. And that's because they communicate to their target audiences on Twitter, but they keep them or try and build a community on Facebook. So that's where they put their advertising dollars, if they were to do that, just to maintain and grow their audience there, because the devotion of the user is much higher on Facebook than it is on Twitter. Now, Facebook people are obviously more choosy about what they will follow. So I think in conservation, there's a lot of passions involved, obviously. So I think it might be in your benefit to really try and maintain both of them if possible, because those that practice conservation and love conservation are very passionate about conservation. So they want to see a little bit more than, you know, a 255 character post with a photo. So, but again, gaining an audience there can be a little tricky, and there are some tips and tricks that I've shared with the district managers, and honestly, they're doing a great job since I've provided them a little bit of training. Cheshire County is actually great. They actually have quite an awesome social media presence. So tip of the cap to them. They're kind of on top, leading the way. Don't tell everybody else. I'm just kidding. No, they're all they've all come a long way. So, but at the end of the day, most businesses have both because they use them in a completely different way. They communicate versus sort of advertise. As an example here, I have some statistics of the followers or the users of our congressional delegation. And you can see that in almost every instance here, their Twitter followers are significantly higher than, especially in the case of our two senators, than their Facebook following. And again, this is because, you know, a really passionate individual will follow them on Facebook, whereas, you know, just a mildly interested person might follow them on Twitter. Another good thing about Twitter is it's actually where the news agencies are kind of hunting down story leads. So that might be something to consider as well if you're trying to get your stuff out so that local papers or publications or editorials or news agencies are picking them up, because it's a lot easier for them to, you know, put an intern scrolling through 255 character posts than it is to say, hey, let loose on Facebook and find a good story. So that might just be something to kind of consider as well. But as you can see, the audiences can be drastically different. And so with conservation, where do we focus our efforts? Well, we talked about a little of this. Districts are somewhere in the middle between a business, a service, a support agency. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, what do you want, a soapbox or a soap store or both? People are passionate and generally want to engage and share their conservation stories and activities. So I think we need to leverage that. And I realize that I'm kind of botching the time thing up here, but we'll move forward unless Dick pulls out the shepherd hook. So we're building an audience, and building a following can take some time. So we need to determine if it's worth the effort, the investment, which is really the time of your employees. There's not a lot of overhead for most of these platforms. They are pretty cheap to kind of get in the door, but to do them well, you might need a little bit more overhead. Timelines, barriers to entry, equipment, that really evolves around one or two platforms, specifically YouTube. Skill sets required are different, but similar across all of them. So we'll talk about these four because they are big players. But you should know that Instagram is actually owned by Facebook. So Twitter, we talked about this already, so this one should be quick. It's a good place to get your message out if that's your only intent. If all you want to do is get your message out, hey, we have a brand new no-till seeder. Come check it out. Got a new BCS tractor. Come check it out. We're doing a field day. Come check us out. You know, that's good. That's good Twitter messaging, really. That's kind of what the platform is geared towards. It can be quick to send out messages. There is a character limit, so you're not getting overly in the weeds about it. And you can put video on there, but there is a bit of a time limit. I think it's like 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Arbitrary, I know, but I don't make the rules. I just play by them. Drawbacks, it's not a field of dreams. You can build it. Doesn't mean they will come. You got to do a little bit of maintenance to get them there. But it does require some effort and networking in the beginning, liking other pages, liking other districts, liking, you know, maybe your Senate delegation or congressional delegation. That will give you exposure and drive more people to your page. Also, a drawback is that character limit. Sometimes you can't say what you need to say in 255 characters. Believe me, I run into this all the time. So that's kind of the overview on Twitter. Instagram is sort of like a Twitter, but photocentric. You know, and what this is you get a brief little message, but you're kind of trying to tell your story in photos. This is great because in conservation, obviously, we can be very photo driven for sure of what's going on in our district. So this is great. It has the same features where it's kind of quick to send out a message, and it integrates well with other platforms, especially Facebook because it's owned by Facebook. The drawbacks, again, you got to kind of build your audience there before it takes root. And it requires an eye for compelling photography, which brings along the subjectivity of art. Just because I think it's a great photo, I took it. A lot of people might just scroll right past it because it's just not their style. So we'll move on and talk about Facebook again, something we've addressed already. Huge potential audience, certainly 2.5 billion people. It's versatile. You can do photos, videos, blogs. I mean, you name it. Facebook is just a juggernaut in this arena. And one of the ways they do that is they see what works on other platforms and what makes other platforms popular, and they have the resources, namely the money and the technicians, to quickly evolve that or implement that on their platform. Things such as buy and sell, they took a look and said, hey, a lot of people are on Craigslist. Let's do buy and sell on Facebook. Messenger rooms, which is now their feature that's similar to Zoom here, where you can have a meeting right on Facebook. That was built in the last 2 or 3 months during this pandemic operation. There's a strong community and group features, though, and I think this is where you and conservation can really pay off, because you can start to have those community interactions online, and you know they're persistent. You can refer back to them. You can see how your district is feeling, how the users are feeling. You can create polls like, hey, is our no-till seeder big enough? Or what other piece of equipment would you like to see? And you can offer some options, so you can put a poll out to your users to really kind of get your finger on the pulse of you know, how to improve your operation for your district. So a lot of the other platforms don't have that sort of capability. So I think, you know, I think Facebook is kind of the place to go. If I only had to choose one, I'd say start there. Drawbacks, it can take some time. It can be very involved, and it can require some moderation. So, and effort to maintain. And then we'll talk about YouTube. It is technically a social media platform, but it just kind of hosts videos. Thing is, you get very passionate users. If they like your channel and you have some content, they will watch it. They will subscribe to it. They'll watch it all the time. Drawbacks is bar to entry. I mean, to do it well, you need decent equipment and a very strong skill set, and that is difficult, and it's sometimes unsustainable to meet those content demands. So that while we're on the topic of video here, I think I've got maybe 3 slides left, so bear with me. We're almost there. While we're on the topic here, a word about video. Doesn't matter what platform you use. If you want to drive content to that platform, video, any sort of form of video. A bee on a flower, I got a lot of mileage out of that last week on National Pollinator Week. Tractors doing what tractors do, you know. Our dairy farmers working hard every day. Just little snippet videos of that is much better than a static photo. You can see here that the top Facebook posts of 2018, 81.8% of them involve video in some way. So, and this just sharing a link was 0.2%. So, I mean, it just kind of tells you what they're looking at. The younger audience wants it. No, the younger audience expects that there'll be some video. So if you're trying to reach them, that's how you do it. If you're trying to grow your channel, just a little bit of video might be the snake oil you need. Growing your audience, we just talked about groups. But yeah, I spoke with the district managers about this, and I know that they're trying to implement it. It's a little difficult to get a group together, but once you get a group following, I really feel that conservation is a perfect place for this sort of activity, because like I said, you can have those polls, you can ask your audience what they think. And they're not just anybody in Facebook. You can admit them to the group. So if you know they're a producer in your area, or if they're a negative Nancy that's, just poo-pooing everything you do from, way across the country, just trolling you. So you can sort of maintain a little bit of moderation over your groups. But again, strong passions and personalities and tumult like that can come through. So if you are pursuing that, just be aware. But over, out of the 2.5 billion people that are on Facebook, over 1 billion of them say that groups is probably the most important thing they do on Facebook. So we can be part of that conversation. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'll leave it at that. One last thing I want to talk about is collaboration software. That's what this is here, Zoom. There's also MS Teams, Google Meet, and Slack. These are all collaborative software programs that have come out lately. Now, they're not really social media, but they are a great way to engage your audience. So once you kind of let them in the circle of trust, you can invite them and have, a real conversation on these platforms as we're doing right now. And you can see they can be kind of fun. They can be kind of involved. And you can really actually get a lot done. So that is really about the end of it. I know that was a lot of talking from me. Let's hear a little bit of questions that you folks might have.
If you mull this over and come up with a question later, you can send it in to Jeremy.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you're willing to answer us and help us through this. As you say, you've been working with the district directors anyway, so.
Yes, absolutely.
I appreciated how each of your slides had in the background some picture like this, something with conservation, something with farming, something that kept our thoughts on these social media connections to our topic at hand, which is the conservation districts. That was a good touch, Jeremy. The visual was really nice.
I appreciate that. And yeah, and it does speak to social media where, it's the visual content that's really kind of pushing people to actually read the words that are there. So thank you for pointing that out.
Jeremy, just a question. I'm a real novice at this. Are there ways to link between Facebook pages?
Yeah, Facebook in itself, yeah, pages can like other pages, and this is something I've encouraged with the district staff that I spoke to a few weeks ago, was that, if your county's doing something cool, sharing is caring. So we all have one mission, we all have one goal, and that's conservation. So Cheshire should like anything that Belknap's doing. Belknap should like what Cheshire is doing, because statewide we have people that are passionate, regardless of their conservation districts. So let's get them in the conversation too, and see what we're doing, and then maybe they'll try and push for that in their own districts.
Probably need to have a conversation. We have a pretty exciting opportunity through some grants. We are partnering with New Hampshire Fish and Game, and one of our grants is allowing, we're going to be through our grant and a matching grant that New Hampshire Fish and Game has. They've just purchased a new video camera, real higher level video camera. It's about a $8,000 setup. Yeah, real nice one. And so
send it my way.
yeah, so part of the strategy behind that is we're actually going to donate our $5,000 part of that to New Hampshire Fish and Game, so they'll actually have the camera. And so the idea is they're going to be taking photographs and tracking the stream restoration effort, but we're also planning to use it for the Envirothon,
Yeah.
and other efforts, and certainly, you know, anything that we can tangentially involve, you know, with game and efficient game. I think there's some really great opportunities, and the idea is to have some videos and YouTube video quality videos that could be, you know, to celebrate, you know, some of the kinds of exciting projects that we have going on related to wildlife and working with communities, you know, to make it a lot simpler to be able to reach out and explain to a community what stream restoration is. So we're actually going to follow the whole process from community involvement, assessment,
that sounds
to
like
implementation.
That sounds like it could be a great serial video series, you know, that keeps people engaged on your social media platform, where you do like a 2-minute series every 2 or 3 months about that project and how it's coming along and everything. So that could be very good. That could be awesome.
Oh, thanks for bringing that to light. That's interesting for Belknap, for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why it's going to be a statewide resource.
Nice. Well, it's a perfect segue. Jeremy, can't thank you enough. Your method here of introducing us to the platforms and the comparisons is really important, really helpful. And it's a great segue into Dick Lutz's presentation, because his is about connecting us and how to connect with our legislators. Dick is a graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife Management from UNH and a Master of Occupational Education from UNH. He's taught agriculture and natural resources in Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire for 36 years. His students have operated a dairy farm, greenhouses, apple orchards, and woodlots. Dick has served as president of the Vermont Agriculture Teachers Association, where he did a lot of legislative work for that organization. He's worked on various gubernatorial campaigns here in New Hampshire, and his father was Ronald Reagan's fiscal agent for NH primaries. He's one of the former executive directors of NHACD, participating in fly-ins and legislative work there. There's a recurring theme with Dick and legislation. He's worked as a business planning consultant for the Trade Adjustment Assistance for Farmers and Fishermen Act for the University of Minnesota under a Foreign Agriculture Services grant. It's a pleasure to introduce Dick. I work with him, I serve with him on the Rockingham County Conservation District, and I'm thrilled to hear his presentation tonight. So join us for Dick on connecting with our legislators. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you. Amanda, every time I hear something in Cheshire County, I can't believe that they've taken it one step further. You connect with legislators through their constituents, and I know there's going to be some budget issues coming up next year because the state is down in revenues. And you've built quite a base that is going to be difficult to make cuts to, because you've involved veterans, people of low income. There's most of the demographics of Cheshire County you've got some kind of involvement with. So that's very commendable and in a good place to be. So we're going to be looking at Cheshire for guidance on a lot of things coming up. There are 10 ways to do it. Rockingham County just killed its newsletter. We fought hard for that several years ago, and now looking at the chart that Jeremy just showed us, there's no reason to have it anymore. So ways of connecting with legislators is send letters, emails, call on the phone, meet them at the Capitol, meet with them in their office, participate in local meetings, participate in virtual forums, make a speaking invitation, have them respond to surveys, and you respond to their surveys, and get to know their staff. Federal congressmen and senators, they come and go, but their staff The Democratic staff stay with Democratic elected officials, and the Republican ones stay with Republicans. So ones that were with Sharon Shea Porter would bounce around to different other Democrats. So once you educate one of them, they last a lot longer than the congressmen and the senators. When you do speak to legislators, it's very important that you're factual. Don't make stuff up. I've seen people crash and burn because they made it up and the legislators picked up on it. And there was a commissioner of education in Vermont that left shortly after he testified incorrectly. When you are speaking, be clear and concise and follow Mark Twain's philosophy. Be brief, be concise, and be seated. When we testify in the New Hampshire House, it's a 2-minute window to talk. And if we go in with a group of people, we have to make sure that each one says something different. We don't have 10 people saying the same thing. So bring just what you need and keep it under 2 minutes. If you were stuck in an elevator for 2 minutes going up to the top floor, that's how much time you have to talk about whatever your issue is. Be personal, talk about things that you've seen. Be inclusive, don't cut anybody out. You want to include, how does conservation benefit everybody? And we see in Cheshire County, that's pretty much everybody's included. They go after everybody. The 50% for people on food SNAP, so you get 2 for 1. That's inclusive. Be constructive. If there's define a problem and give a solution. Don't. We got badmouthed quite badly last January by one organization, and the legislators picked up on it. Figure out what the problem is, give a solution or two, give them options that they can choose from. Be informed about the legislation and the legislators. Know the roles of DES, DOA, NRCS, CDCs, CCDs, SCC, and CDEA. Now there's a whole bunch of acronyms there. I hope everybody knows them. But people get confused as to those roles, what those roles are. Some of those are enforcement. They can walk onto a farm and fine them or make them correct something. We don't have that power. We only have the power to work voluntarily, people who ask us in and volunteer to improve their land. And we need to make that very clear. That was a very good point that we made to the Rockingham County delegation a few years ago. And the Republicans backed off on any negativity towards us once they figured out we were the guys with the white hats. So you have to be a listener. What is the person really saying? Ask questions, because they'll say something and mean something else. So don't get all discouraged. Listen carefully and ask some questions, and you can guide their comments to a more positive approach. Always be courteous, be aware of the rules, like how long do you have to talk. Be open to compromise. When we went in for our bill that was before the House, there were people fussing over the word climate, and there were a couple legislatures wanting to, instead of using climate, use environment. And those of us who went to testify that day said, fine. If you want to call it environment instead of climate, we're okay with that. Okay, and also be aware that if, as a public school employee, we always knew that if a town had limited resources and they had to choose between a fire truck and a school bus, the fire truck always got bought first, and the school bus would be paid for the next year. So sometimes you go in, you don't get what you want, but you got it on the table. They're thinking of you. They prioritize what you're doing. We had times where the county wanted to pay the workers at the nursing home, gave them a raise, and they couldn't afford to give us everything we asked for. So they gave us part of it, and they told us why, and we said, okay. And then the next year they came through with the rest of it. So be willing to compromise, be patient, it takes time. And so you have to be persistent. And if you don't ask for it, you never get it. So get it in their minds that they need to do something for the conservation district eventually. When they get their other priorities higher priorities taken care of, they will get back to us. When you meet with them, get them scheduled ahead of time, well ahead of time, be punctual, dress for the occasion, have handouts and briefs to leave behind. We are working on position papers now that we can present or send to people. Stay focused on the issue. Keep your eye on the prize. Sometimes they'll try to you'll get sidetracked, but stay on the task. Provide relevant, specific examples from your district or their district. Cite people that have benefited from conservation district work. If you can, bring them along. If not, bring a letter or at least get pictures and pass them around. And if you don't know anything, if you don't know the answer to the question, don't answer it, go research it. And any unresolved issues, go back later, send them a letter, a follow-up letter is one more interaction with them. And with congressmen, it's just as effective to meet with their staff as it is with their officials. With all the things they have to deal with, some of them have specialists on their staff that know more about a situation than the congressman or senator. So let them. It's good to invite the staff to our events if you don't get the legislator. Okay, consider hosting a conservation tour. 2011 or 12, we had an HACD did a tour of a farm and conservation practices in Lee. It's time to do another one if we haven't done one in the last few years in another part of the state. Send a letter of invitation to the lawmakers and staff offering multiple dates. We can do this in our county with our delegation. Be sure to confirm the visit. I didn't do that once, and I ended up going to Commissioner of Agriculture's office, and nobody was there. And I had a group of people that traveled 2.5 hours to get there. So confirm the visit. That's very important. I learned the hard way. Engage your local, state, and national conservation representatives if we're going after national things. They'll kind of give us an indication of where those senators and congressmen are leaning. If we're doing tours, bring media. It's good for us. It's good for them. Invite local government officials. So that would be conservation commissions and agriculture commissions, selectmen, and our state legislators. Always have an agenda and a briefing on the issues, prepare handouts, take pictures throughout the event, send thank you letters afterward with pictures. Visit local landowners that have utilized the conservation districts. Showcase our demonstration projects that federal funds have helped with. That's important. And highlight neighborhood conservation practices and sustainable forestry. And Amanda, Cheshire County is probably the best in the state at that. And you can invite them to board meetings, invite them to your annual banquet if you have one, and invite them to tours in their congressional districts. Okay, so democracy is a work in action. Will you sit on the sidelines or will you engage in our representative democracy? What is the NHAC going to do? We have position papers that we have to work on that we can send to our legislators and Congress people. We do zoom in on conservation so we can understand what our issues are. the NHACD can support districts with their annual appropriations. What can we do as a group to help conservation districts through their budget processes? What is the plan? The SCC is coming up with a strategic plan. I'm not sure if that's going to be included. We have the SCC, we have the Conservation District employees, and we have the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Districts. Each one has a different role. And one of the things we need to do real quick, and we can do it as part of the SCC strategic plan, is who's going to do what to who and when. So that's going to be on our agenda for this coming year, I believe. If it isn't, it should be. So that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them, or comments. Stop share. Here we go.
I think right now I'm feeling that Amanda could have been an hour at a workshop. Jeremy could have been an hour at a conference or a workshop. Dick, that could have been an hour breakout session at a conference or a workshop. This has been quite a thorough evening here. I really appreciate these 3 presentations.
Yep. So Donna, Richard, and Amanda, you're the CDEA president? So you 3 need to get together and divide and conquer. That's a task for you people when you leave tonight, is, have a Zoom over that. Maybe you need some adult beverages to go with that one.
Dick, I'd like to thank you and Chris both for putting this on, and I'd like to see if we can't get more attendance in the future. We have potentially 60 people here. What we have is the dedicated few, and that would be my objective, is to how to make this grow, because I think the potential is enormous.
Yep.
Can you forward the presentation so that we can share those with our board members? I think that might be useful if we could share that as just an example of some of the depth of information that we're sharing on these calls.
Yeah, we can also put it on our website. The NHACD website is a link, and people can find it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think if we could just send it out as a link, then folks can go take a look at it. Great idea.
What the technology is to accomplish that.
Richard Miller's right, though. We need to let people know that link is even there to get a hold of this material.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is have it set up, and then I can just send it as a link.
Yeah.
And promote it, but make it as easy as possible for folks to just go explore it.
And Dick, you want to tell us what's coming up next month?
Yes, next time we have Jeremy Luigi from Southeast Land Trust. He's going to talk about land trusts and how conservation districts can interact with land trusts. We have a good relationship with land trusts in Rockingham County, and hopefully it can spread around to the rest of the state. They're really good to work with. They're very appreciative, and they have money sometimes to pay for our expertise. So that always gets district managers' attention, is if you put a little $ next to it, they pay attention, because money is what makes the districts work. It's fuel. It's like farming.
Which district is going to be our spotlight next month?
We have to volunteer one. I will have to deal with that tomorrow. I'm thinking of starting in the south and working north. So I'm going to arm twist Hillsborough tomorrow sometime. I've got 8 left to go. I've got to book Stratford before a maternity leave takes place.
Oh, burning daylight, Pilgrim.
Yeah, so, there's all those, COAS doesn't have anybody right now, and I don't think Carroll County, whoever's there, knows where all the bathrooms are yet, so I don't think that will be useful for a while.
Mhm.
Sullivan County would
sharp,
love
though.
to host one.
Which one, Sullivan?
Yes, we could
Okay.
do education, public cidery.
Okay,
Those are probably our big things we do, conservation education.
so we'll
Nice.
book you for August?
How about September when our cidery opens?
Okay, we'll do that. Okay. So that leaves me 7 to pick from. Excellent. Well, we do have a lot of good talent in this state. I'm glad to see it's getting a spotlight. And so we'll wrap it up. Well, we're 2 minutes over.
Wow.
Okay, so see you next month. Bring
Yeah.
more people.
Thank you
We
all.
we have to offer a fabulous prize for the district that shows up the most.
So one question is, what's the technology? Is it possible to record these programs?
This has been recorded, actually.
And we're still recording. I see a little red light up in the upper left that says recording, so it's.
Okay, great. So that there could be a link that way as well.
Yeah. So somebody under 40 is going to have to figure that out.
I still barely make that, so I'll try my best.
Okay.
I'm not under 40 anymore.
All right.
Thank
Maybe
you
I
all.
may have to raise my standards to 50 because it's been a while.
Well, it's great to see everybody now. It's a different sort of a 4th of July holiday, but nevertheless, I hope you all get to do something you enjoy for yourselves this coming up weekend. And
All
I'll
right.
look forward to seeing you. So the August date, it's the first Wednesday of the month. So you can write that down in your calendars and join us again, 7 o'clock, the first Wednesday of August.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day.